Hello, this is Todd, and this is the Psychic Zone. Anyway, we have a special guest tonight. We have Rachel Kohler, who is a psychic and a medium with a lot of experience. Anyway, hello, Rachel.
Hello, Todd. Hello, everyone out there.
So, just tell us briefly how long you've been a psychic, and also, um, did you know you had gifts when you were younger?
Excellent question. I am what they consider a third generation psychic medium. I inherited this ability from my grandmother in Germany, who I never met, who passed it on to inadvertently to my mother, and here I am. And my first conscious experience of me recognizing I was different was as a child. We lived in a country, in the country. We had 15 acres, and I used to sit on these, what I call meditation rocks. They were huge rocks.
Mm-hmm.
And I would sit there all day. And the only time I remembered that is when I had a flashback when I drove by the country house years ago. And I remember telling my mother, Mom, I can see energy. I can see the air. And she would say, well, what are you talking about? And I said, I can literally see air. I see things in the air. It was what I was basically doing, was reading energy. And then as I got older, I really didn't pay too much attention to it. It was really, I repressed it because it wasn't encouraged by my mother, but it was encouraged and supported by her sister. So she helped me along a lot. She really supported me.
Hmm.
So that's my first conscious recognition that, yeah, there's something different about me. And of course, I have read stories about psychics and mediums. James von Prague had a similar experience as growing up, being very lonely, not connecting with his peers, uh, people staring at him, looking like we were different. And I remember that very, very clearly in my growing up years. I
Hmm.
would go into a store and people would stare at me like what's wrong with me? And I did develop a really bad introverted personality. It was very, very difficult for me growing up. And then when I was married, only a couple years, my grandmother from Germany, Elsa, started appearing to me in my bedroom.
Hmm.
And I fought it and fought it. And I finally had a tape recorded email on a cassette tape from a psychic in England, Ronald Hearn. He's now in spirit. And he verified that, yes, it was my grandmother, that I had a special purpose in this life, and I was to help people. Well, at the time, I was having challenging marital difficulties. And again, lonely in my own marriage. And I told my guides, because they came to me and they said, we want you to do this work, this spiritual work. And I said, I will do it on one condition, that you promise me that I will never be alone. And they said, no, you will never be alone. Well, I eventually divorced. And here I was alone, so to speak, with my 10-year-old son. And I kind of confronted my guides and I said, you promised me I would not be alone. And they said, you're not alone. We're with you. So that was a pretty eye-awakening
Hmm.
experience. I joined Spiritual Frontiers Fellowship, became involved with spiritual groups. My first spiritual teacher in physical form was George Yulee, who was a deep trance medium. And here I am.
Hmm. I was just on the phone with my mother yesterday because it was Thanksgiving, and uh, she always brings up how I was when I was a boy. And, always thinking that I was not normal. In fact, many years ago, when I broke the news to them, what I do for a profession, I was, thinking they would probably think I was absolutely crazy. But to my surprise, my mom, my sister, friends of the family, they weren't surprised. They weren't surprised at all because as a child, I had a very intense fear of everything, and including people. I couldn't be around certain people. I saw bad things in them. I She had to put me into a special, I think it was a Catholic preschool, and I believe at a hospital, something like that. And so my whole childhood was kind of tormented with fears and, sensitivity to places. And so, kind of similar to you in a way, is that I reverted inward. I was a very inward child, and the outward came out in my artwork. I was an artist next to my grandfather. We painted all day together, and that's the kind of kid I was. And it is kind of strange that about in my early 20s, I got very into like Japanese culture, Japanese healing, that kind of thing. And I learned about the Tao and the Book of Changes and, the simple mountain hermit living on a mountain. I ended up living on a mountain, funny enough. And that kind of spoke to me. So I went for what I should have done was have, kind of a career and be out in the world, but I went the opposite. I lived on the mountain and went inward. And your environment growing up was like a farm, wasn't it?
Yes, yes, it was. Not
So,
not fully. It wasn't a working man's farm, I guess you could say. We had chicken, pigs. Those were there before I was born. We had chickens, pigs, lamb,
uh-huh.
sheep. That I remember. Big asparagus field, strawberry fields, walnut trees. But my father fell and broke his back on a scaffold,
Oh,
and he was incapacitated for years. So my mother had to go back to work. So they had a hard life. They had a hard
oh.
life, but we survived. I mean, I never starved. I can tell
Mm-hmm.
you that. But yeah, I think it's very common, and I think the reason, Todd, in reflection, that we as sensitive psychics go within as children is because we need that time to develop our inner being to and also our higher being, and being able to communicate with not just nature but the higher forces of nature, angels, spirits, whatever you want to call them.
Mm-hmm.
It's necessary. It helps us to be more empathetic, and empathy, I have found, you're either born with empathy or you're not. And I don't think that's anything you can learn. I think you can learn to be more sensitive, but I don't think
Mm-hmm.
it's something that most people, I don't think people are born with it. I just don't.
I
But yeah,
see.
the farm environment was good for me. And I really hated when I moved. I was only 8 because that was my whole world.
Mm,
That was my whole world. And really just living in a community, I just did not like it. There's no other way I could describe it.
well, I was
So it's
also, yeah. And and then you moved out of that community?
important when I got married, yes.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Right, right.
I you were talking about your grandmother, and I found out certain stories of my family that my family had intuitive gifts too. I was surprised to hear that my grandfather, who I was so close to, um, I was told by a very close friend of his that he was psychic. He said things, but he was such a quiet man who just sat with behind a canvas with his paintbrush. You would never know. He was not interested in anything except listening, to the news and the radio. And if his lunch was 5 minutes late, he got angry. He
Oh,
very regular sort of person, very creative, insanely creative. But I also learned that my grandmother, and we were talking about this one time on my father's side, looked like a gypsy, came from Romania originally, bright red hair, bright blue eyes. I really didn't know too much about her until in her 90s. I got to know her better. We exchanged letters to each other. And I would say probably a very intuitive woman as well. So a lot of people, here's a good question too, going into topics. A lot of people come to me and they want to become instant psychic, or some people say, oh, so and so has learning classes to become more psychic. And it's kind of strange to me because this is not something that I really wanted to do. But how do you feel about people that want to learn abilities? Because in my opinion, I feel you were either born with it or not.
I'm aware of that, of your belief, and I respect that. And I have had clients and friends approach me, oh, teach me, teach me, teach me. And I have taught some what I call spiritual development courses, but
Mhm.
only to those people that, this may sound kind of snotty, but only to those people that we feel are worthy of
Oh.
respecting these talents and abilities, because it's the same energy of what I call them non-positive people use to create havoc or put curses or spells on people. And I will not support that in any way or fashion.
Mhm.
So, yes, I have taught people, and I have actually talked to people, clients online. I worked for a couple psychic clients years ago, and yes, I did work for what was her name, that black lady, uh, Dionne Warwick, and I
Oh.
have actually recruited people. I would talk to them. I'd say, you know what, you can do exactly what I can do. I could just sense it, and several of them did go on to become very qualified psychics. And while we're on this subject, because we said we were going to talk about this is not a game. This is not, oh, you're so lucky you're psychic. It comes with responsibilities. Because to me, when someone comes to me with a question, their finances or their relationships or their health, they are asking me to take their life in my hands and try to help them. And I consider that a big responsibility. That's why I am so very opposed to some of these online psychics that, number one, do not know what they're doing. I question their motives. I think a lot of their motives are, let's make a lot of money.
Mhm.
And three, not really helping people. This is not about making money, Todd, as you know. This
Mhm.
is helping people. This is not an 8 to 5 job. I have done readings for people at 2, 3 in the morning because they needed the help, not tomorrow. Like you call the doctor and go, well, I can see you in 2 months.
Mhm.
No, that's not the way it works. And I feel it's really important for people to understand that. And there is a modicum of respect involved too, mutual, respecting the client and also respecting the psychic, because this is a vocation of dedication. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, as you know, very thankless. So yes, I believe that some people can be, but not everybody. Not everybody. No.
Yeah, and I should rephrase how I said that too. Not to deter people from discovering their abilities, because I believe there are many people, and I actually talk to them as clients, who do have really strong abilities but do not know it.
Correct.
And I actually had an experience the other day, although she secretly kind of knew it. I went into a phone store nearby. I was having trouble with my phone, and there was this um, girl, black girl, about 20, 25, something like that. And I was looking at her as she was working on my phone. And I was very bold and I said, I said, do you do you have a really strong intuition for knowing things that are going to happen? And without even moving a muscle, she says, yeah. And I said, well, also with health stuff, do you know health stuff, through your intuition? And she said, Um, yes, I do. She was very aware of it. And then, we had a good conversation. I was talking about, um, I think I was talking about her sister, who's really stubborn. I was talking about other people, and she was just giggling. But she understood this. She didn't advertise it or anything, but um, you can probably sense that in people too, right?
Yes, I have. Yes, and to me, they're like flowers that are in the bud stage, and
Huh.
all they need is some guidance and support. Because and I'm not saying that teaching people how to become more aware, it doesn't necessarily have to be that they have to hang up a shingle to do
Yeah.
this, but to help yourself and to help other people, your family members. Because as I said to you the other day on the phone, I don't walk out of my house
Mm.
before I say prayers for my house, my cat, my pets, and driving, protecting while we're driving, and protecting wherever we go. I just feel it's so important, and it's called awareness, or I call it inner knowing too. And I
Yeah.
have seen some of my clients really blossom, and I integrate it in the readings too. Not necessarily that they have to take my course, but I say, you really should trust your instincts more, because you really are good. And I had a long time client years ago, and we were talking on the phone one day, and she started picking up on my cat being sick, and
Mm.
I said, you really need to help other people's animals. And she helped me tremendously. She has no formal teaching or education in this work. She's a natural,
Mm.
you know? So it's kind of like walking into a dark room and you've got a candle in your hand and it's lit.
Hmm.
You're putting light in that dark room, and making people aware, hey, you've got this ability. And I have done groups and parties, even with I remember one woman, her son was mentally challenged, and I was reading palms because I know how to read palms too. And he had abilities. There is nobody on this earth that is born without a purpose or a reason for being here.
Mm.
And I so much believe that. I have seen horrible situations, horrible occurrences occurring to certain people, but they're here for a reason. And when someone says to me, oh, it's God's fault, and I said, no, I'm sorry, I don't believe in blame. God is not the fall guy for your child's illness. You need to understand this child chose this illness, and I know I'll get conflict with this, but your child chose this illness to teach you something and maybe some other people, or to bring enlightenment to the medical profession. Okay, it's just the way it works. That's why when somebody says, "Oh no, God did it," no, I'm sorry. You know, if one believes in a higher power of God, I often say to my son, you know what? God really gets a bad rap, and I'm really kind of tired of it.
Yeah. And by the way, I've I've learned so much from you. You may not know that, but
No, I didn't.
you have helped me to understand this, and I'm often afraid because I did not expect what I'm doing now to be quite on the scale that it is. And I always had a thing about reaching fame or that kind of thing. I try to protect myself because I know there's another side to the coin of that. So hopefully I'll keep it in check. But when we were talking about it's, people think it's a money thing, and yes, there's a lot of scams out there getting money, but really, when I started, I was a licensed contractor. I was working on houses. I had money. I was fine. The thing that hit me so strongly was after I saved some lives. I saved some missing pets. I helped somebody, I think, with an illness. I helped other people. And I just said to myself, how can I not do this? It's crazy. So during the day, I was a carpenter, and at night, I was a psychic. It was very strange, but also the type of people that you're talking about that are intuitive. I find even today, as we have a very challenging society, that I like being around children, and I can I can completely understand them. They're open, they're intuitive, they're not blocked, they don't have hatred like adults do. And the other side are animals. Um, and I find they're kind of my protection during these times when people are very negative, very selfish. And so it's interesting how when I'm around children, they just sort of cling to me. I don't even know them. They just come up to me and they cling to me. And then I was in somebody's house recently. They had a new cat, and they were shocked that this cat came right on my lap and started purring. They said he never does that for anybody else. And by the way, if you hear chewing in the background, that's my rabbit. My rabbit came upstairs.
Oh, hoppity hop.
Yeah, but
It's your energy, Todd. And children are purely innocent. They don't have any prejudices. Prejudice we learn.
mm,
It's not inborn. And I have animal totems. I mean, I have a jaguar, and I forget the breed, a black
huh,
cat that watches over me at night, and I feel their presence a lot. And I do animal totems, and I believe everybody has an animal totem, and they can change as depending on certain situation in their lives. But it's your energy, and I believe everything is energy. I don't care. You go outside in your garden, you pick up a rock, or you pick up a plant, or you pick up a little frog. They're all emanating and absorbing energy.
mm,
And I just feel it's so important for people to get in touch, get back to your basics. Getting back to Mother Earth. Mother Earth is literally a female planet. It's her yin energy. Taking our shoes off and walking in the ground or the grass to absorb that yin energy. It re-energizes us. We are just so bombarded with computer energy, and which has been proven, and
Mm.
cell phone technology and mobile devices and the newspapers, not so much anymore, but the news media, that we go to bed at night and it's like our mind, and I have experienced this, is information overload.
Yeah.
So everyone need to get back to basics. And I think I mentioned to you recently, I took 2 weeks off, didn't watch the news. I don't have television, so any news that I get, I go to two conservative websites, and that's it. I don't do the mainstream media because I
Mm-hmm.
don't. So when you detach from that, you go, oh wow, look at that. Because we're blocking our intuitive abilities and our spiritual abilities because we're going away from our source. We do have a source. I'm not talking about God in the literal sense. There's Yahweh and there's Buddha. There are different gods. I don't
Mm-hmm.
believe there's just one God running this whole operation. And I think it's a pretty big operation. So that's what you're doing. You're the pets and animals. And when I was in sales, I would go into people's houses and their animals, oh look, I said, your dog will be fine. And I was never bitten. They would jump in my car because they didn't want me to leave. You know, animals are their purpose is to teach us unconditional love. That's why I think they're here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
It's and that's one of the topics that we were going to talk about a little bit, was our challenges reading people and why it is such a challenge right now. I don't think people understand. I mean, we always have a challenging person that comes onto our path that wants to make trouble. But I have been bombarded with people wanting to reach spirit, and they think something's wrong with me. Why can't you get in touch with my father on the other side? And I must admit, I've done some amazing mediumship readings for people by chance. I
yeah,
remember actually not long ago, a woman down in Florida. I was actually speaking to her friend, but this girl who actually died off the side of the road was connecting with her, her name, everything. I ended up on the phone with this woman for I'm not kidding, about 2 hours, talking about her home, her brother, this necklace she gave her, why she passed away, why it took so long for authorities to find her on the side of the road, where she was laying, this and that. But what is happening right now is people are watching, they're watching the internet or they're watching television, psychics, and they are getting an impression in their mind that this is how it is done. And I try to tell people, if you want a mediumship reading, that will come about. You don't sign up for it. It's something that, and it might be somebody coming through, not even related to you. It might be somebody related to your home. And that, of course, in this old area here, that always comes up. Um, so many Civil War, entities
absolutely.
coming through.
And Todd,
And
we really need to drive this point home because, as you know, I announced on Facebook about a month ago, I'm not going to do mediumship readings anymore because, one of the last ones I did, she was really disappointed because her father didn't come through. And I was describing this other, she said, well, I don't know who that is. And I said, well, I'm sorry. I said, that's who's coming in. And here is my present theory. You're talking about the changes that we psychics go through and the
yeah,
clients who are involved. I tell you truthfully, people who are listening today, that I see more people going over to the other side than coming over here. I'm not saying that your loved ones or family or friends aren't checking in on you once in a while, but frankly, I feel a lot of them have gone on to higher levels of consciousness. I'll put it to you that way. This is my belief. I'm not saying I'm correct, but that's my belief. And I just thought there's no more, I don't want that pressure of, well, I have to talk to my father. And I said, and you told me the same thing when I asked you about someone about a year ago. You said, Rachel, you know how it works. If they're available, fine. If they're not, that's okay too. And I know that, but a lot of people do not. So, and this goes integrated into any psychic reading with someone like yourself and me. Expectations. What do you expect? Do you expect bells and whistles? Do you expect that the psychic is going to tell you the truth? Or do you expect that this psychic is going to tell you what you want to hear? Big difference. And I've had a couple people get mad at me, and I, well, that's not what I want to hear. And I said, well, that's not what I do. I said, and I told that to a client a couple weeks ago. I said, I'm not for you. If I can't tell you what you want to hear, because that's unethical.
Yeah. And, I see it the same way too. I see it that a lot of people will say, well, my grandfather didn't come through. Does that mean he's not well? And I will say, no, not at all.
No, they're busy.
They are in a higher place. I kind of see it like the ocean. Some people up on the surface where you can connect with them, some down a little bit lower, and then some way in the deep sea, and I always kind of see it that way.
And I think people need to understand that there's 7 planes of existence. The earth plane is the lowest plane. And the next plane is the astral plane. And there are many people that pass over that are literally trapped in the astral plane. Why? They don't want to die, or they were on drugs, or they were on drugs or substances, okay, had severe psychoses. They're trapped. Okay, so if you want me to call someone that is trying to work through their own stuff, because the whole purpose, I tell you, everybody tonight, or today listening, the whole purpose of coming to the earth, which is my slang term is called the pain plane, PAIN plane, is for the evolution of the soul. This is where we have the opportunity to get rid of most of our junk so that our soul can evolve, so we do not have to incarnate back to the earth plane. We can go to higher levels. And again, I really believe that a lot of spirits they have gone on. I don't feel my sister and brother-in-law as much as I used to. And my sister is gone 6 years in February. I mean, when she first crossed over, I would get messages, not a lot. And sometimes I sense her essence, but not the way it was before. They're busy, they're growing, and they do work over there. I have seen people that have passed, and when I would talk to them, they tell me I'm helping animals, or I'm helping other people pass over, or I'm helping children that were aborted. I mean, they're busy. And if they want to sit there and lay on a bench, I've seen them do that too. But why would they want to come back here and hang out? Because and I've had spirits say to me, I don't remember anything. I don't remember the earth because it's no longer where I live. And my clients would get upset, and I said, they don't live here. They don't have to eat. They don't have to drink water. They don't have to pay taxes. They don't have to go to work. It's a whole different ball game for them. So, and I think this is part of, like you said, the misconceptions of our profession. And one of the other misconceptions I talked to you about the other night is, like people say to me, well, you must be rich. I'm like, excuse me? I said, who do you think pays for my health insurance? Who pays my taxes? Okay, I don't get vacation days. I don't have a pension. There's no psychic pension that I know of. I said, I am self-supporting.
Yeah.
So, and God bless the people that don't have to work as hard as some of us do. I know I worked very hard. And I told you about that article written by a PhD. I must find that and send that to you. If
Mm-hmm.
you're so psychic, why aren't you rich? Well, it's meant to be to help other people. And there's a story, a true story. Saint Bernadette, who allegedly was visited by the Virgin Mother in Lourdes, France, developed a very debilitating disease when she went in to become a nun in I can't think of the name for the nunnery, but anyway, the mother head of the facility said, "Why don't you go to Lourdes and get the water?" And she said, "The water is not for me; it is for others." And that is where we are, Todd, in this profession. Now, there's a downside to that, because people say, "Well, it's a gift. You shouldn't charge for it." I said, "Excuse me, two things I will tell you. Number one, everyone, almost everyone that's born has talents and abilities to be a rocket scientist, to be a writer, a composer, whatever. Okay. And the second rule is one of the spiritual laws, which is what I use when I teach spiritual development. That you've got to know how the earth operates, and you've got to know the spiritual laws. And one of the spiritual laws is the law of exchange. Todd, I'm going to hire you to do a reading for me. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You say, okay, this is my fee. It is called the law of exchange. I am paying you for a service, for your time, your energy, your education and experience. It's not to be given away fruitlessly or without thank. I'm not saying, and I know you have, and I have, given away, help people that don't have the money or whatever. That's different, but it's a profession. That's what it is.
And there has to be honesty too, because I'll get people who come to me and I know they're lying.
Oh, that's
And
frustrating.
if somebody comes to me honestly, and I have done this, I actually found a missing man. Unfortunately, he was deceased, but the police could not find where he was. So I helped them, and I don't believe I charged them. And, but they were honest about it. And
Right.
that goes for missing pets. But yeah, I mean, we all do charity work.
Yeah,
And
it's part of our giving back.
also, one more point talking about connecting to the deceased. A lot of my job is having to connect with people that were in trouble with drugs, with the law, who had pretty bad lives, and I've often asked to connect with them. They are in that kind of suspended plane, which is not a good place to be spiritually. Um, so I've done that before with people who have had relatives that were maybe drug dealers or something, and they want to get in touch with them and they want to see what they're doing. I've even had some of them ask me, okay, where did they hide the money? Okay. Those
Oh,
kind of things are going to really
I remember
that's
that.
a bad purpose.
Right.
Um, Speaking of the changes on the earth too, and I have a feeling after a lot of your followers are going to listen to this, they're going to want a part two of this. So I hope you're ready. But um, Earth changes and what is going on. We have got, and I've heard this from a lot of my clients are actually very intuitive people, and they know something's going on in our society and people are acting different. And you also were pointing out that the earth, the gravitational pull of the earth has changed.
Yes, I forget. Uh, Recently, scientists discovered that the Earth is accelerating. It's like time is speeding up, and this has happened ever since 2020, and it's continuing. So that really, the time it's inaccurate. It's and I'm paraphrasing because I don't know
Mm-hmm.
about these things. Yes, and it's definite. I can sense it, and the gravitational changes. Yes, I mean, again, when you're dealing with the laws of physics, which I took in college, and it was really hard for me.
Yeah.
But anyway,
At least you got that far. I didn't get
yeah.
that far.
But anyway, I notice sometimes when I'm doing something, I'll take a cup and I'll try to place it on the counter, and it's like my aim is completely off. Like I've missed it like 2 feet, and it literally falls to the floor. It's not me going wacko, and I'm definitely not on
Mm-hmm.
drugs, but there's something like pulling. It's like an opposing energy where you
Yeah.
normally take something and you put it down on the table, but it's not staying there, or it's something is pulling you away. That gravitational pull. That's probably a poor example, but it's
Mm-hmm.
something that I notice. And if anyone's out there listening, well, anyone that's listening, and you've had these experiences, I would love to really hear about them, because I know it's going on. I mean, and I think that's part of why all these automobile crashes, I mean, people driving into buildings and turning, I mean, like they have no conception that anybody else is around. And it's, and you and I know the other reason, but we can't discuss that.
Of course.
But but and it's almost like we've lost, like the gravity on the earth is changing. And the other reason I believe that, and this is, I've seen several articles about this in the last few years, is that the earth has gone off its axis. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There is something really funky going on with the earth. And we are all, I don't care who you are, we are all sensing that to some degree. Maybe not fully cognizant on a conscious level, but definitely subconsciously, but we don't understand it. So part of developing yourself spiritually and intuitively is learning how to deal with all this insanity that's going on, so
Mm-hmm.
that we ground ourselves, getting out among Mother Nature. I mean, that's one of your healing, like healing plants, flowers, trees. I mean, it's all here for us, but we have to learn to get back to basics and
Mm-hmm.
get away from all the exterior distractions. I think we as humans, I think more so in this country than any other, because I do talk to other people all over the world, we've been severely distracted. And I think we've lost our way, and we need to get back to our source. I don't care if you call the creator, I don't care if you go out and worship a rock.
Mm-hmm.
It's better something natural than just, worshiping. I got to have the next new iPhone. I got to have that new color TV. These are things. And
Yeah.
in 50 years, I say more like 25, these things are going to mean nothing to us, because we, as human consciousness, we are evolving so quickly. And I think the earth shifting on its axis and the speeding up in time is symbolic of what's going on in our lives. It's kind of a validation that something's changing, and people are feeling these changes. And I hear it from my friends and clients. I don't know what's wrong. Everybody's so depressed. Everybody's so angry. Well, sit down and ask them where are their priorities? What are your priorities? Are your priorities making a lot of money? Are your priorities out there to buy the latest new electronic gadget? Do you pray? Do you meditate? Do you communicate with the forces of nature? Do you reach out and help other people? There's this thing called charity. It's so simple. I can see it. It's so simple, but trying to explain it, as I've said to you, and you and I both agree, you and I spend more time explaining what we do and what we don't do. So this podcast is a great way to hopefully educate people and say, hey, this is what we do. This is what we don't do. Like I don't do quick fixes. Some people think, oh, she's going to fix everything in a half-hour reading. I wish. But it doesn't work that way. That's why sometimes you have to have a follow-up reading. And client will say, well, why? And I said, okay, when you go to the doctor and he gives you a physical checkup, does he tell you, oh, you don't have to come back again, Mrs. Kohler, because it's good for the rest of your life? Hello? It does not work that way. You are constantly, you human beings out there are constantly changing and evolving. You get up in the morning and you decide, I'm not going to go to work today. I'm going to stay home. You've changed your future right there. You've taken a left turn versus a right turn. And that comes with taking responsibility for your choices and decisions, which is integral in getting a reading with someone like Todd or myself. You can't call back that psychic and say, well, you told me this was going to happen and that was going to happen, but it didn't. So then the first thing you and I should say is, okay, what did you do differently between the time you had the reading and now? And they may not want to admit it, but there's something that they did or even didn't do to change their future reality. Because remember, predictions are not written in stone. There are possibilities and there are probabilities. And then there is probable reality. And if anyone wants to dig into this, pick up some books by Seth Roberts, no, the Seth books by Jane Roberts, who was a deep trance medium. Very heavy reading, but it may give you a different perspective. And then I'll share with everyone an example of one of my dear psychic friends who is now in the spirit world.
Yeah, a lot of predictions too. In I'm sure people out there are saying, oh, well, they're using this as an excuse, to defend not being right. That's not true.
No,
A lot of it is the world as well. And the way people are functioning in the world is not normal. We were talking about earth changes, and strangely enough, I've come upon a lot of people who feel this need to prepare. They're buying cabins up in the mountains. You know what I mean? Yeah, kind of preppers, but also even people, just everyday people, they feel this need to prepare to go inward. I know a lot of people who were looking for relationships with people and have completely closed that off and say, they're saying, I'm going to go live alone somewhere and I'm going to go establish my home. So we've got a real difficult situation in society. First of all, we can't relate to each other anymore without texting. And it's very frustrating, the whole communication with people. It has really shattered kind of the human soul, because it's not about being social, but it's about connecting and how to connect with people. And we've really lost that. One other point, too, about the access. The Eskimos or natives up in the North Country did report, and this came out several years ago, I think, that they watch the stars. They watch the planets and the stars very closely, and they said they are not in the same places that they usually are. They said the Earth changed. And I also have a theory, too, that back in ancient Egypt and all those ancient times when pyramids were being built, that the gravity was different on Earth than it is now. I do believe that of course, modern man wants to blame cars for causing all of the Earth changes, which is pretty dumb, actually, because these changes have been going on forever. There were ice ages. There were years, many hundreds of years ago, that never became summer. And the ancient texts from Japan, also China, talk about the axis of the Earth is spinning faster during this time. And that's something that I learned about. And it will also, I believe my old teacher said that this is a very tough time dealing with society because the Earth spins differently and also makes people behave differently. He says the way that they can make balance with it is to eat a very simple diet, to have a practice of spirituality, not all day long, but a consistent spiritual practice, whether it be Tai Chi, whether it be things to kind of ground you. So all the things you've said are helpful and will be mandatory for all people in the future, I think.
And most of them are free.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting. We've got this mindset. I mean, I go on the internet now and then I see these advertisements. Oh, take this course, take that course, and they have this bodywork thing going on. And, I think it's just a lot of over marketing and gobbledygook to make you spend your money. I'm sorry, that's my position. There is no quick fix to heal yourself or get better. It's, as I said, getting back to basics. Anybody can do it. You know how I feel about texting. I almost lost 2 long-term friends over a misunderstanding from a text that I sent out. It was completely misworded. You and I text, we do it all the time, but I think you and I can read between the lines. But what the heck is she talking about?
Yeah, I just,
Yeah, but I abhor it. And my guide several years ago said, "What is this with this texting? You are not talking to a person. You are putting letters in a column, and there's no energy. There's no connection." And I think this was a planned propaganda scheme to get us to detach from ourselves. I mean, detached. I have never seen people so detached in my whole life.
Yeah.
I mean, it's scary. I mean, if I smile at someone in public, they think I'm going to get them. Well, what's this senior citizen smiling at me for? What does she want? I just, smiling at you. You need a smile. You need a happy place. So, yeah, I really think we have to be more combative and aware of our environment and really take some regimented, easy steps. I'm not going to watch the news today. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to go out for a walk. I'm going to do something nice for my neighbor, whatever. Start small and build up. But I think people get so overwhelmed with fixing themselves that they just give up. And I'm sorry, it's not easy. God never said it was going to be easy. But as you said, with these new energies that we're dealing with, the earth changes and people's attitudes and this social media garbage, and I will call it garbage, we are being challenged more and more. And I'll tell you, last year, my guides told me point blank, time's up. People better get on the stick and straighten yourselves out, because when things really begin to change, you're gonna sink. So you better learn to swim or you're going to sink. And I'm sorry, that's not a doomsday prophecy. It's what it is, and it's going to happen. And if you're prepared, whether you decide to go in the mountains and be a prepper, if that's where you are led to be, then do it. But for God's sakes, wake up and get away from all this physical garbage. And it truly is all garbage. I'm sorry, but I'm a simple country girl,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the way I see life, and I see it more from a philosophical level. I always have.
The um the amount of I looked at the statistics for how many depression and anxiety drugs are being given now to our society. The number, even in the 1970s was very low. It was very rare actually, and now our society has been on these drugs in such huge amounts, and even children in such large amounts. And I have worked with many clients who have reacted negatively on these drugs. So, and I'm sure I'll get a debate after this. Well, somebody with clinical depression needs that. Yes, we're not saying that you should not be treated,
For a
but
limited period of time.
it's so prevalent
Yeah.
now, and I believe it alters people.
Yes, it does, because a pill only treats the symptom. It doesn't go to the core of the issue or problem. Why are you depressed? Why are you angry? And this is what I do when I coach people. What makes you upset? Well, I take a pill and I feel better. I said, no, you do not feel better, because the next day you go back to feeling depressed and angry. And this treating symptoms has just got to stop, because I've seen some really nice people who self-medicate, whether it's through prescription drugs or alcohol or pot or whatever, or want whatever, but
Hmm.
they're not helping themselves. They're destroying their psychic web, their psychic being. And that's when not so nice things can take over people. And you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, some of the cases that I've worked on recently, and I'm not just talking about pharmaceutical drugs, but drugs in general.
Right.
We have a real it's
Uh,
an emergency situation with drugs out there.
yeah,
It's huge,
it is.
and,
It's
and
really bad.
it's not just with young people either. We're
No,
talking people that are, I know people in their 60s that have meth habits, and it, the numbers are just staggering. And then during COVID, those numbers really doubled.
I was going to bring
And
that up. I think COVID has been a big contributor to people's psyche.
mm,
And now, we are, I don't know if you heard the news today, but, this Black Friday was a bust, because people aren't lining up anymore. Even the people that have subsidized income, they don't have the money.
yeah.
People are frightened.
Well, they are frightened, and we try to stay out of the political realm, but I'm always in the middle, and what I have seen as far as this war going on, COVID was a war. This was a weapon of choice, I believe. The politics is the other weapon, um, and we really, I feel like we are in war times right now, and I don't
Yeah,
like feeling that way.
I think it's a war for our soul.
Yeah.
Our our souls are, and I'm not going to get into the Hollywood scene and whatever, but I have met people who I had a client years ago. He was heavily into demonology and witchcraft, and
Mm.
he begged me to help him. And I said, I'm sorry, I can't help you. Once you cross that line, there's no going back. And I felt sorry for him, but I said, I cannot help you. You know,
Yeah.
we're crossing dangerous lines today, and then you have these people that frankly are very, very selfish beings. And I frankly have never seen so much selfishness in my life.
Same with me. You know, I
It's
look at,
frightening. I'm frightened when
yeah.
I see this and I hear this. These things come out of these people's mouths. I remember reading for a woman who was a stock market trader, and she was in the World Trade Building. And I remember her saying to me, all I care about is myself and making money. And when 9/11 happened, I often wonder if she was one of those that lost her life,
Mm.
because I had never heard somebody so selfish,
Mm.
not caring about anyone else. And this is why we have all this cruelty to animals
Uh,
every day, every day.
it's and the other thing that I've noticed too is the pet rescues that I'm doing are getting harder and harder and harder. These animals do, I hate to say it, they do not want to be in their home, or they are alerted by situations around them to flee. And I've had some dogs, we've had sightings of them every so often that have been gone over a year,
Mhm.
living in the woods, coming out. Um,
I just posted
and
to you on YouTube, on Facebook today about that. A dog, a nurse, a dog that was nursing on his own, I think over a year. And this rescue guy finally, weaned him back to, being around humans. Yeah, I believe that. And animals do sense things, just like you told me about the other day about the tragedies I had with my losing my pets. One of my friends told me, you're Alyssa Sue. She wanted to go because she didn't want to see you suffer and experience for herself and me what's coming.
yeah,
People just, I don't know. I sometimes wish, Todd, that I had a camera that I could, a TV screen that I could hook up to my brain and my mind, actually my mind, because the brain is just an organ,
mm,
just show them what I see coming. And
yeah,
it's not pleasant. And I'm sorry if people are scared, but I think it's time that they start preparing their souls.
yeah,
This is not a time to, oh, it'll be okay. No, denial is not going to work, because I think part of that's why we got into this situation with the COVID and wearing the mask and being dumbed down. I'm sorry, we have been
yeah.
severely dumbed down.
It could have been a lot worse too. I mean,
Oh,
think about it. Some of
yeah,
I had some predictions of something very serious coming, and we wouldn't be able to um,
publish
come
it.
protect ourselves.
Yeah, yeah.
And I fortunately I don't see that right now, but that's a possibility.
Well,
We're doing
well,
all the wrong things.
they're exploring lots of options to scare the bejesus out of us. I'm sorry, but that's the way it
Hmm.
works. And I always tell my clients, let go of your fear and replace your fear with positive action, positive thoughts. This is not, oh, I'm going to do a mantra once a week. No, that's not enough. You really got to pour your heart and soul into it so that you're prepared, and that's why being intuitive is so important, making sure that before you go out that door, it's safe to go there.
Hmm.
I mean, we just had that shooting in Walmart in Virginia.
Yeah, not
And
far from me.
right, right. And I have I remember being in Capistrano several years ago in California, and I have the world's worst depth perception and perception. But anyway, The map says go left. And my car, I swear to God, the gas pedal just went, psh, and I went straight. And I landed at the Capistrano Mission. But then when I was coming back, I saw on the road that I would have turned onto, there was a bad accident. So I believe that I was directed another path, so I was not involved in that crash. And that has
Interesting.
happened to me numerous times. And this is why when you are attuned, and I think Tai Chi is a big thing. I think Tai Chi is very important for people to develop their mind, and also Taekwondo. It will help you so that you're constantly attuned. Your intuitive ability, or whatever you want to call it, is your fail-safe system. Says, Todd, don't go to the store today. Please stay home, or go at 3 o'clock instead of 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
Happens to me all the time, all the time. And I'm not bragging. I'm just saying this is how I've learned to develop myself and to trust that somebody else knows more than I do what's going on out there. Oh yeah, you can check your Waze maps and your traffic reports, but that doesn't something can happen in the split second.
I do
You know,
that a lot on my motorcycle since I ride a motorcycle. There are some days, and I call them accident days, and I'll intuitively read them. And then I'm out on the road and I start seeing a lot of ambulances and fire trucks driving, and that just says, okay, be really careful. Take the country road and don't mess with the highway. And
right.
I have to do that all the time. And I used that when I was working with horses too. There were some days that just didn't feel right. Another point, I know this is totally different, but a lot of people think that everything is solved when we die. And I try to tell them, no,
No,
these lessons you need to learn here.
no. Get it done here. It's better than, because you'll carry it with you.
Yeah,
You and people that hate their relatives or can't forgive, I know that forgiveness is a hard bridge to cross, but you really want to do it beforehand, because when you go over there, you're going to have to deal with it there, or wherever there is.
yeah,
And I had a neighbor who I had predicted she would commit suicide, and we were in a spiritual group and we were in a healing circle, and she came to me and started speaking through me and telling the group, do not commit suicide because I am suffering over here. I have, much, I don't care what you call lessons or karma to work through this, because I took my own life.
yeah,
It was really sad. And ironically, someone in that group that night admitted later that they were thinking of committing suicide. So that was a message to that person.
interesting.
That's how spirit can work. But no, you don't carry that stuff over, because it's not instant enlightenment. We all have to atone for our sins. And I believe that atonement is a biggie too.
Yeah,
It's really important to atone for your sins, and not just promise, well, I'll do better. You got to do a lot better.
hmm,
Not talking religion here. If you do harm to someone, I'm telling you, you're going to get it back. It,
yeah,
it's it's these are spiritual laws, and these are also basic laws of physics. The boomerang effect, the law of cause and effect. You know, that's the way it works. I didn't set these things up. Somebody much more knowledgeable
yeah,
and intelligent did. And it's so easy for you listeners out there to really make positive changes in your life, just one day at a time. Maybe take a Taekwondo class or a Tai Chi class. Try something, anything to make yourself feel better. No alcohol, no drugs. I'm not talking about that. I think it's fine if you want to have a glass of wine once in a while. I can't. Alcohol has become totally allergic to me. I can't drink it anymore.
mm,
And that's fine. I feel that my body has said, okay, that's enough. You don't need it anymore. And I never really did like alcohol to begin with. But listen to your body.
hmm,
Listen to the earth. The earth right now, and I've heard this, I sense the energy of the earth, and I feel like sometimes it's dying. And I have a concern about that too, that
Yeah.
we may be going through a total evolutionary process where eventually the earth will cease to exist because we are poisoning the earth. Don't you believe, Todd?
I had visions, and I told a lot of my followers about this, that I saw very far in the future, and I don't know how long. And I saw a lot of green on the planet, but I also saw a lot of water on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing that concerned me was I did not see people, a lot of people. I saw a very small population sort of scattered around the earth. I even, funny enough, saw very old type technology being used. Like I saw an old type car. I saw a house with like a windmill, something like that. And but I kept having this dream over and over. It was actually not a sleeping dream. It was a kind of a vision, like sometimes I'll do when I'm just sitting there and it will come to me. And a lot of people ask me when is the light at the end of the tunnel coming, and the thing that I find hard to admit is that I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it for a while. I mean, I
I,
usually go a few years out, but I don't see it.
I, I'm sorry to say I agree with that assessment. But I think if you're prepared, and one of my acronyms is KIP, knowledge is power.
Mm,
Knowledge is power, people out there. Get some knowledge under your belt, make some positive changes in your life. It's kind of like, don't just say it, do it. Do it, do it, do it until you can't stand it anymore. It's like kind of going to the gym.
mm,
You've got to make a commitment to yourself and to the people around you and the people you love. We can make these changes, but I tell you this right now, it's only going to affect, in my psychic opinion, only a small population,
mm,
because most people will not, they don't want to change. And that's their choice, that's their free will. I don't judge in that regard, but if you want help, there's people like Todd and I that can help you, but most of the work you're going to have to do yourself. We're only messengers. That's all we are. We're just messengers,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I just work here. That's
I'm
basically
just
my job.
doing my thing, trying to make some changes along the way, but I still have to take care of myself. And so do you, Todd. And I've talked to you about this,
Yeah,
why.
yeah,
Um, so for those of you that think this is a glory profession, I'm sorry to disappoint you. It's not, but we are dedicated. We are dedicated.
yeah,
And I guess there's a blessing in that. I don't know, I just know that when I go home, and I think it'll be sooner than later, then I know that I can be at peace with myself because I've done everything I thought I could do the best that I could. And that's really all that is expected of us. But I think we've come to the point on this earth, particularly in this country, when we need to do more, much more. Because in other countries, sorry to say, people are speaking up against, and I'm not going to get too political here, against adversity, but we've
hmm,
not done that yet in this country. And I think, Todd, you and I know why.
yeah,
And
yeah. It's very clear.
yeah, that's a sadness that for me doesn't go away. It's
Mm,
part of my nighttime, camera that they turn on me at night, and I can't turn that button off, and I see things and I don't like what I see, but I can't change them. I can only send out the message, and if you listen, great. If you don't,
mhm.
I'm sorry. I'm so
Well,
sorry.
I think what will be very interesting. So, in a minute or so, we're going to stop recording. I try to keep it about an hour, and we were doing about an hour and 15 minutes, but that's fine. I think what would be interesting is when we post this to our social media, people can comment below and give us feedback and what they want to hear about, or,
I'd I'd like that very much, because I do want to pursue this more. Uh, maybe, do my own podcast, because, I like the two-way, you know.
yeah.
It's kind of like texting. You're sending out a message, but you don't get the response right away. So, yeah, I think that's a great idea, Todd.
Yeah, I think that's what I've enjoyed about doing this is I get a lot of feedback, and there's a lot of people, believe it or not. Recently, I was working on, I've been working with a forensic astrologer on
Yeah,
her
yeah,
show and doing these cases, and people don't understand it. It's not my normal thing to talk about these cases unless I'm relaying the information to the boots on the ground. That's
yeah.
the whole purpose of it, is to give the police or give the family who are searching, to give them what I get so that we can get some evidence, and then I can go further with that. So it's a very, very hard thing um, to do, just like it is when I go live on YouTube or Facebook and I answer questions to the public. They don't understand that to answer a question from somebody that pops up on the screen is not easy. In fact, I really
No,
probably shouldn't do it, but it's taken a lot of practice for me to do something like that. But understanding how we work and what we need to make our work easier, we'll be talking about probably more. Um,
I think
uh,
that's a great idea. And I do want to say one thing to the people that follow me or read my crazy posts. I'm really thankful for all of you because, I've only been on Facebook for a few months. I was on years ago and I just said I need to take a break. And I'm back, and it can be frustrating. I know some of you know my frustrations, but I appreciate every one of you, your comments, your little emojis, and all that. And I do love every one of you. You've helped me to learn and grow too. I want you to know that. Um, and some of you have just taught me some really great things. So I just want to thank every one of you. And there's a few of you out there that are very, very special to me. I won't name any names, but
mhm.
you know who you are. But yeah, I think that's a great idea, Todd, to, let them make comments. And if you decided we want to do this again, maybe we could do a joint, a joint podcast. That's what a
Yeah,
couple of
yeah.
you
We'll
follow.
come on again, and
they,
maybe
they
we'll.
thought they thought tonight, they were going to be able to, like the dynamic duo, and we're going to answer all their questions.
Uh,
That's okay. That may come. We got to take one step at a time.
yeah, that we could probably do on YouTube, kind of like I do with
Yeah.
on those cases and stuff. I'm very technically challenged too, and I'm hoping that the recording sounds good. And I'm going to be checking this over uh, every part of it tonight, so
Okay.
it will probably be out this weekend.
Okay.
But
So after you post it, I don't have to copy it now.
no, I'm actually right now, I'm gonna stop the recording and we'll talk
Okay.
to everybody later, but you can talk to me after I stop, okay? So
Oh,
don't go away.
I
But
will.
goodbye for now.
Bye, Todd.